What's up, house groups? Let me start by addressing the elephant in the room. No, I am not one of those weirdos who believes the Christmas season starts as soon as the first leaf falls or listens to Christmas music all year long. And those of you who do, John Damastis, are wrong. But it is Christmas Eve planning day at Revision, and I'm a firm believer that you gotta go all in if you're gonna come up with great services. So today, I am in fact dressed for the occasion. And now that that's out of the way, work. We've been talking about why and how it matters because it's part of the way God designed us, even though it's also a very real part of our struggles and frustration in a sin-shattered world. And a couple weeks ago, I mentioned the movie Chariots of Fire, which is the incredible true story of some British sprinters preparing for the 1924 Olympic Games. And one of them, Eric Liddell, went on to become a missionary in China. He lived an amazing life. And at one point he declared, "God made me fast, and when I run, I feel his pleasure." It's this neat picture of something I think is true for all of us. God gave us gifts, and as we use them, we're meant to feel his pleasure because we're bringing glory to him and adding value to our world. The other main character of Chariots of Fire, though, was a guy named Harold Abrahams, and he was a different guy altogether. He had a huge chip on his shoulder. He wanted to be the best, in part to shove it in the face of these members of the wealthy British nobility who had discriminated against him for being Jewish. And so at one point he hired a coach to help him run better and more efficiently. And at that time it was almost unheard of. This was before NIL and before football coaches were the highest paid public employees in most U.S. states and in every school district in Texas. Like back in the day, before modern times, amateur athletes didn't really use professional coaches, and college students and Olympians in the 1920s were amateurs. And so Abrahams received a lot of criticism for hiring a coach, but he responded by explaining his reasoning. He said, "When I'm at the line, I raise my eyes and look down that corridor 4 feet wide, knowing I have 10 lonely seconds to justify my whole existence." 10 lonely seconds to justify my whole existence. Like the difference between that and Eric Liddell is fascinating. You got one of them saying, "I'm working with everything I've got, fighting to prove myself so I can feel good about who I am." Versus a guy who's saying, "God made me to do this, and as I do it with all I've got, I feel his pleasure." Not I earn his pleasure. No. I feel his pleasure. I'm simply doing this because it gives me life as I delight the God who delights in me, and as I delight the people around me in ways that point them toward him. You cannot watch the movie Chariots of Fire without realizing this. One man is running to be sure of who he is. The other one is running because he knows who he is. And the result is, like, both of them are working incredibly hard, but one was always weary even when he was resting, and the other one was always at rest even when he was working. And you guys, that is what we were built for. We were made for peace, beauty, meaning, and rest even when we're at work. But that seems like almost an impossible dream in our society, doesn't it? We exist in the middle of a soul-sucking busyness where it feels like everyone around us is run ragged while desperately searching for some sort of balance. And I think the biggest reason for that, the reason we overwork ourselves and never put our work down, the reason we're exhausted, the reason our kids are in hundreds of extracurricular activities, the reason we're busying our souls to death is that we forget who we are and whose we are. We believe the message of a culture that says our value and our worth is tied up in our work. That we're only as good as what we contribute or how successful our kids are as we live vicariously through them. There is a voice in the back of all of our heads that whispers, "Unless you perform, you are not worthy of love." So you better understand your work as a chance to justify your whole existence. I think, at least for me, when we believe that voice, work becomes a prison. Which is why God commands us to rest. Not invites us to rest, commands us. Like, don't miss this. Sabbath is a declaration of freedom. Slaves don't get days off. Children do. We are not slaves to our work or to a society that tells us who we are is determined by that work. We belong to God and we have infinite value because of what he did for us, not because of anything we could possibly ever do. And the truth is, like, unless or until you realize that, no amount of time off, no number of vacations, no matter how spectacular they may be, will ever cure the restlessness in your soul that needs to prove your value and control your world. But you guys, we can rest because God is in control and he loves us. And when we believe that, we don't have to search for balance in the middle of the craziness, because balance is nearly impossible to achieve and completely impossible to maintain. Instead, we can live in the rhythm God designed us for, the rhythm of work and rest, working and then taking a Sabbath every week to plug into God and power down from work, to connect with our Creator in worship so we can be filled with more of him, and then to completely set our work down in a way that allows us to be recharged. To not do so that we can go be energized to do more of what God gifted and gave us to do. That's rhythm. We were made for it. And it's healthy and beautiful when we get it right.